Hey Book Dragons, thank you so much for tuning into the channel today. A few years back, I did a video on the pros and cons of mass market paperbacks. And surprisingly, or maybe I shouldn't be that surprised, it's one of my most viewed videos. Apparently, I had some good things to say in that video, and I kept meaning to make a follow-up video for other things like hardcovers and trade paperbacks. So today, you're getting the hardcover edition. Eventually, I will talk about trade paperbacks as well because those are cool also. I have a mix of all three, really. I have some mass markets, some trade paperbacks, and some hardcovers. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of hardcovers today, okay? So I have got my glasses here, my trusty eyes. Got to get those on. I have a list right in front of me, just in case I forget something I wanted to talk about. All right, so let's get right to it. We are going to start with the pros, and we'll work our way down to the cons, okay? The first thing that I really like about hardcovers is, for the most part, they stay open really easily. So let's take, for example, my edition of Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. If I open this puppy up, it stays open pretty easily. Now, if I'm at the beginning of the book, right, it's not going to stay open as easy. It kind of flops around, but if I am halfway through it, it's going to stay open pretty easily. I don't have to worry too much about it flopping closed on me and me losing my place. So that's a really cool thing about hardcovers that you don't get with mass market paperbacks. And so I really like that about hardcovers. And isn't that just a beautiful book? Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so another thing that I really like about hardcovers is the standard design usually has the most detail. There are a few exceptions. There are authors out there that put illustrations in all editions of their book, which I think is really awesome. But most of the time, the hardcovers have the most detail, even with the standard edition. So this is not a fancy special edition of Fire and Blood. There are some of those out there. I know Folio Society makes one. But this is just the original first edition hardcover of Fire and Blood. And as you can see, it's got nice illustrations in it, and it's got just really fancy designs at the beginning of the covers, and the dust jacket is really beautiful. So they put a lot of work into this, and you've got the end papers at the beginning. I feel like with hardcovers, even the standard editions now are getting more and more detailed, and they're putting a lot more special stuff into it. So that's another thing that's really good about hardcovers. Oh, you're going to get down, Ari? Okay. She's gotten tired of sitting in my lap. So another thing that's really cool about hardcovers is special editions. If you are buying a special edition of a book through fancy vanity publishing houses, it's always going to be hardcover. I don't know of any case where they have done it other than hardcover for those special editions. So, for instance, I've got a specialty edition of The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, one of my favorite books of all time. And it's got fancy color illustrations in it. And, they would not put this level of detail. You see the little designs on the covers there, on the pages there. They would not put that level of detail into a trade paperback or a mass market paperback. They just wouldn't. So that's really cool. Most of the special editions that you're going to get that are out there are going to be in hardcover. If not all. I'm thinking all, to be perfectly honest. So, but I love that special edition, and I wouldn't want it in anything other than hardcover anyway. I mean, who would, really, I guess? Unless you don't want to spend that kind of money. It wasn't a paycheck, but it wasn't cheap either, so, It's one of those splurges that I wanted to do for one of my favorite books of all time. And I feel like it was worth it. But I feel like that's one of the pros for hardcovers is you get the option to have a really fancy edition of it. The next one I want to talk about is that hardcovers are typically the most readable font size. Now, not always. I have read some hardcovers that are really small print size. I'm like, what are you doing? Why? Why? Like my edition here of the Earthsea books by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's really great, and I have read out of it. But the print size isn't the greatest for my eyes. I had a hard time focusing on the book because of the print size. And so, it's one of those things that you don't always get, but the majority of the time you get a larger font size with hardcover books. Like the Fire and Blood that I showed you, this is a really decent print size, and the font that they used is really great. That's another thing about hardcovers. They usually have the better fonts. With mass market paperbacks and stuff, you kind of have to go with a little bit smaller font in some cases. But this was easily readable for my aging eyes, and I absolutely loved it for that. So most of the time, you're going to get a larger font in hardcovers. Another one is that it looks the best on the shelf. In my personal opinion, there's nothing like a really nice hardcover edition to showcase on your shelf. And, it could be as simple as spine forward or cover forward. It doesn't matter. They both really look nice on the shelf. So because you're getting the fancier designs for the spine, you often get something that looks really nice on your shelf, regardless of which way you situate it, right? Now, this does not have fancy sprayed edges, which a lot of special editions do, and that's almost always done with hardcovers. I don't know of a case where you get a sprayed edge book that is not a hardcover. So just a side note there for special editions. But yeah, most of the time your hardcovers are what looks best on the shelf. And another thing that's really great about hardcovers is that you get a great workout. I mean, who needs to go to a gym when you're a book lover, right? You just get a massive tome. Like, I can pump some iron with this. I can do squats with the Earthsea book or something like that. It's a great workout. You don't need to go to a gym. Sorry, you can go to a gym if you want, but it's a weight, right? It's a big chunker, and so it's going to give you a good workout, and I think that's a really good thing. And one other thing I want to touch on here before we move on to the cons, you can use it for self-defense, okay? So if I'm walking down the street and let's say I turn into a dark alley and I've got my book with me and I'm reading it here, this big Earthsea tome, right? And somebody comes on me trying to mug me, I can just throw the book at them and run, because a book can be replaced. People can't. So remember that. If you've got a large book with you and you're worried about the direction you turned on the street, just know that you can sacrifice the book and stay alive. Yes, remember, books can be replaced. People can't. All right. And on that note, we're going to move on to the cons. And one of the cons of hardcover books is that they are so damn heavy. I did not enjoy my experience reading from this book, even though I enjoyed the stories. I did not enjoy holding the book. And I took the dust jacket off, so it was a little bit easier. It's not sliding around in my hand on the dust jacket. It's just so heavy that it didn't always make for a pleasant reading experience because, I've got arthritis, I'm getting older and it'll hurt my wrist to hold one of these things, which is one of the reasons I like to read ebooks as well. It's just an e-reader, right? But, I do enjoy the experience of the stories, just not always the size of the book. Now, there are varying sizes, right? So this one's not as bad. It's a little bit easier to manage because it's not as thick, it's not as bulky. So this book is nice. I've got others like Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. This is a hardcover, but it's pretty light. It's not too bad. And this nice edition of Something Wicked This Way Comes. This is really small. I can hold it with one hand. It's easy to manage. So I feel like if you get the right size of a hardcover, it's not as bad. But if you're getting some of these bigger tomes, like the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, I just flat out refuse to buy those in hardcover because they're so large. It's a little bit different depending on the edition you get, but they can be really heavy. Another thing that I find not so great about hardcovers is they don't have a lot of flop to them. So if you're sitting there with a trade paperback, it's got some flop to it, because it's a soft paper cover and it just flops all around. With books like this, you don't get a lot of flop, right? It's not gonna easily stay open on its own depending on where you're at in the book. It might close on you and lose your place. So some kind of bookmark is definitely required for hardcovers. And if you've got a hardcover that does have a lot of flop to it, that's not necessarily a good sign because it means the spine is probably not in that great shape. Just be aware of that, and that's another con, right? Sometimes if hardcover spines aren't made very well, they're going to become detached easily, and you're going to start seeing a lot of flop, but you probably want to worry at that point. So, yeah, not lots of flop with hardcovers. And again, with the size of hardcovers, they're not easily portable. Like, I don't know that I would care to carry a massive beast like this, or maybe this Earthsea book here, in my backpack. Because not only would it be the only thing that fits in my backpack, but it would just weigh me down so much that I would be exhausted lugging it around. So it's not easily portable. This isn't something that you want to take with you to a coffee shop or on a trip or anything like that. I mean, can you imagine putting this in a suitcase? It would take up a quarter of the suitcase at least. I mean, gee whiz. Now, something like this is easily portable. I can easily take this with me, toss it in a backpack. It's not going to weigh me down. So again, depending on the edition of the hardcover you get, it might not be as bad. But that's definitely a downside of hardbacks. And we already talked about how the spine can wear down over time. So that's definitely a con, especially if you use the book a lot and you put it through a lot of wear and tear. That spine isn't going to last very long. Now, you do get broken spines with other formats, but not always to the point where it's just literally falling apart. You get that a lot more with hardcovers. And it takes up more shelf space. I think that's the biggest thing. So this takes up a good chunk of my shelf that I keep it on. So if you look here, I will kind of zoom in so you can see it takes up a good sized chunk there on my shelf. Whereas other editions aren't as bad. I mean, this takes up a decent amount of space, but it doesn't take up a ton. This is hardly anything in terms of shelf real estate. So yeah, depending on the size, again, but if you're getting larger, longer books in hardcover edition, they're going to take up a lot of space. So that can be a major downside depending on your perspective and point of view. I completely forgot to mention that one of the cons of hardcovers is the price. Oftentimes, hardcovers are the most expensive edition of a book that you can get, especially if you're looking at the special edition of the book, kind of like the one that I showed earlier for The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. It was pricey, and oftentimes if you're a collector, it can be an expensive hobby. So I don't do it very much, but on occasion I'm willing to spend that extra dollar or two, and it gets you a nice version of the book. But keep that in mind, that's definitely a con. That's really all that I came up with as far as pros and cons for hardcover editions of books. Let me know some of your thoughts in the comments below. Are there other pros and cons that you thought of that I did not mention in this video? please feel free to elaborate in the comments below. I would love to dialogue with you. I would like to get some other ideas from you of why you like hardcovers or don't like hardcovers. So let me know in the comments. And until next time, guys, make sure you're reading more books, and also make sure you check out the cards at the end for other videos of mine that you can watch. And I will talk to you very soon.